So once again, thanks for being here, everybody, to Diversity in Aquatics. And we have the old team back again from last year, talking about CPR and First Aid, and specifically the role of CPR in aquatics and water safety. So like last time, we'll go around again, do a quick introductions of yourselves, if you please could, and then we'll get to talking. So maybe start with Jonathan.
Hi everyone, Jonathon Webber, Senior Lecturer at the Auckland Medical School, and also sit on the New Zealand Resuscitation Council.
Cool. James?
Kia ora everybody, I'm James Lee, the Life-Saving Operations Manager for Surf Life-Saving Northern Region.
Very cool.
Hi everyone, Tom Kearney from Drowning Prevention Auckland. I'm Team Leader of Open Water Education.
Nice. So the whole team did do longer introductions last time, which I will put a little link up there so you can go and see the conversation from last time, because we are building on that conversation. So I'll prime it a little bit and say last time we talked about the importance of CPR, obviously, and the importance to water safety. And we did a lot of talk around that. I think we got some good points out and some things happening. With this one, we want to continue on from that, talking more about, okay, so we've established that CPR is an important part of water safety and adds a lot to it, and something that we should be doing more of in New Zealand. How? That's the big question. How? What does it look like going forward? What should we be doing? How should we be making this a thing? So maybe just go around with some initial thoughts on that idea of the how, and then maybe take the conversation from there. So I open it up to anybody who kind of wants to throw in and start. Maybe Jonathan might be the person to do it. So full disclosure, we were having a conversation before this. So maybe if you could, Jonathan, start us off with that conversation, then we'll roll behind that.
Sure. So I think, we look at CPR as the final link in the drowning chain of survival. I'm sure Kurt can put up a graphic of that just to remind people of the various components there. And we know that prevention is the most important part of that, but occasionally the protection layers, systems fail. Not all cardiac arrest in the water is a relation to drowning. And we're quite fortunate in this country that we have reasonably high rates of bystander CPR, around the 74% mark, but there's still a quarter of people who get no bystander CPR. And the other thing that we know is that if a person is retrieved from the water in a timely fashion and they receive CPR, there can be quite a good prognosis for them. And it's far more to do with the interventions of first aiders and bystanders on scene than it is to do with paramedics, doctors and nurses later on down the track. So what we need to do is, I guess, promote CPR as an activity that goes alongside water safety, not just for in the event of a mishap, because nobody goes to the beach or the lake or out boating with a view that they are going to be performing CPR on a friend or a family member. But it's also in other aspects of life, and I guess it addresses the sad reality that the person you're most likely to use CPR on is somebody that you know. So I think we need to pursue the channels that we've got for getting the message out and getting people to do some hands-on practice, because we know CPR skills deteriorate with time. So I'm thinking surf clubs, swimming clubs, public pools, tri-squads, multi-sport events, those types of organisations that have some infrastructure but also have geographical spread around the country, and invite the public to come in and drop in to refresh their skills and make it a fun sort of activity. And there's some great technology associated with CPR mannequins now, where you can turn it into a game. You can compete against your family member. You can have hopefully spot prizes sponsored to get the best score, and just make it part and parcel of what we do in terms of getting ready for the summer, enjoying the outdoors, enjoying the aquatic environment, but not just a one-off. I think that's the thing that I'm really keen to get out of these discussions, that it becomes an annual event.
Fully agreed with all that. That's we got to capture just that and put that up on a separate thing, because you're hitting a lot of the points. And just, I'm definitely going to jump to you guys, James and Tom, in a second, but it kind of sounds like we're talking about the how, the when, the where, and the who in this discussion. So maybe jump to James and Tom to see if they have any ideas off of what Jonathon just said.
After you, James.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, open water specialist. Yeah, no, all very, very valid points, and we discussed those ones last time too, Jonathon. But if we can, early intervention, like you were talking about, and especially the bystander effect, if bystanders can be trained in some basic rescue response and basic CPR, it's going to make a huge difference. But if we can always remember our own safety, if we can get flotation to the patient, it's going to interrupt the drowning process, so at least we keep them afloat. But once on shore, if they do go unconscious, we just need to know some really basic areas around basic life support. And in these times, it's a little bit tricky with COVID in our environment, but even some simple measures like still having your face mask on and just getting on the chest and providing some really good compressions is absolute key. Talking about, you nailed it there, Kurt, is who can we target, and who could be the audience that we work on a little bit more here. And I've been thinking about this one a lot, and especially in terms of that beach environment. And I'm really looking at surfers a lot more within the community or within their communities and how they can be trained. They're great in the water, and they do a lot of rescues, but it's just having some of the basic training, and then also a little bit more of the know-how around emergency care, who to call, where to go. There's a great initiative at the moment, Surfers Rescue 24/7, in partnership, Jonathon might correct me on this one, but in partnership with Surfing New Zealand and now also Surf Lifesaving New Zealand. But it looks like a really good thing, and then we're going to have additional surveillance on the coastline before and after patrol with some really experienced people in the water, and it will just give them a little bit more know-how around rescue and basic life support. So that's one that I'm really keen to look at further, because it starts to join the dots on the surveillance that we have in the water, but we start to upskill some very capable people within that beach environment as well. So pretty passionate on that one at the moment in terms of the who.
So I really like that. Tom, I'll actually bounce that to you with the outdoors background, in addition to your ocean specialty. That you can.
Yeah,
we're having fun. But yeah, please go ahead.
Recently, around that, around surfers rescue or surfing rescue, just because of the environments that we recreate in, and the amount of people that we know out on West Coast beaches that are capable people. So I think that's really important. But the other thing that I thought would be interesting was what Jonathon said about the high percentage in New Zealand of bystander resuscitation prior to emergency services arriving. So generally, most people these days would have some sort of first aid certificate for work. It's becoming more common that they're getting trained in that. So looking at the 25% of cases where that bystander CPR hasn't happened, and trying to target those. So in what realms and what communities these people are in, and how to target those. So whether that is those public displays, whether that's tying them in through community groups, but potentially a bit more research around there of when it hasn't happened, or that within that first instance. So I think that would be really important, because that would be targeting the who isn't doing it, but also what Jonathon was saying around the regularity of training is you only really have to refresh your basic first aid every 2 years, but because of skill fade, you can forget all of that within 6 weeks. So I think looking at regular training, especially when we see it with workplace education, is really, really important if you are working around that aquatic environment. But I think it's equally important for the public themselves to be refreshed and more regularly, I think. Yeah.
Yep. And that's one of the reasons why I actually like to instruct. It's not only the fact that you're instructing, but you're also refreshing yourself while you're instructing others, because it doesn't matter how good you are, you still need to keep it up. So, I'm going to tag on to, thanks for that, Tom. I'm going to tag on to something that Jonathon said, which probably, it wasn't really hidden, but it really resonated with me, is the fact that how much it helps when bystanders react and jump in and do something. And the fact that it's their actions make a difference. It's not just hanging on until the ambulance gets there. And especially in drowning, because it's so acute, that the bystander action is important and will make a difference. And if we have to break it down, I dislike breaking it down to drowning stats, because every life is important. But at the end of the day, if that's what we're aiming for, that would be an outcome, is that you will see some difference, because that's what makes a difference. So getting that to the point, but then also with the who, not only thinking who we're training, and just to get to that point as well, the whole diversity and inclusion aspect of it. Are we training for diversity and inclusion while we're training for the workplace as well? Because I know a lot of times I've seen programs which it's delivered in the normal way it's delivered, which might not be as suitable to people who have another language or to people who come from a different background. And not every instructor, and this is not faulting the instructors in the least, this is an education thing in general, not every instructor has the experience to deal with a wide group of diversity. So that's an element as well. If we're looking at that 25%, we actually want to target that. That might be one of the areas, I don't know, but that might be one of the areas that we want to target. But maybe throwing back to another question with the who, not only who we need to train, but who's going to do the training. And I guess I should reframe not training, something, Jonathon, you mentioned, is the demonstrations, the idea that we need to put it out there. So the idea of community training as opposed to workplace training, and that there might be a different delivery style and a different delivery cost from a community aspect. So what does that look like in New Zealand, and how do we kind of level that up a bit?
Yeah, I think there's a few good points you raised there, certainly in terms of the diversity. I mean, the location of aquatic activities in itself is not necessarily reflective and diverse. So putting on a public display at, I don't know, Omaha Beach, in the car park next to the surf club, or even at a swim club, or in these sorts of locations is not necessarily going to capture those communities. However, being able to take the program to more remote areas, to local swimming holes, areas that people go in, rivers, and that is going to be the key. But I think that having the activity close to water makes a lot of sense because of the relevancy that you go to a classroom to do a first aid course, then you go back to your workplace, and these people have different motivations for attending the training. If they're going to say, yep, I'm happy to spend a couple of minutes with you, and I think that's important to appreciate. You're not going to have these people for long periods of time. As James says, you're just going to get a few key messages across. But I think in terms of the delivery, with the advent of CPR feedback mannequins, technology that has the learner's phone give the feedback, which is an app that they can download. Now that's a little bit restrictive again in terms of access to people who have smartphones, but a train the model is a lot easier when the technicalities of something like CPR are actually fed back to the learner via the mannequin, and the instructor really just has to provide some explanation to the steps of doctors A, B, C, D. But I think that it is important that we have people who are all on the same page. And, it's a real issue in all types of industries. But we still have people who attend first aid courses and they're taught, oh, don't worry about the breathing, or the breaths are optional, these sorts of messages which don't follow the New Zealand Resuscitation Council guidelines. And certainly in drowning, where we have a focus on breathing, it's really important that if we're going to embark on an education campaign, everybody is delivering the same message. But, YouTube video demonstrations, CPR feedback, I don't think it's as high a cost model as it is. Yes, there's a mannequin, which is a few $100s. There's a free app on a phone. I think it's doable, but it's how you coordinate that and how you get the reach across the whole country.
Yep. You guys have anything to add on that one?
Yeah, I was going to just talk about the definition of community and how it differs between different ethnicities within New Zealand. So community to one ethnicity might mean something different to another, and how you capture that is different. And I think having community leaders within that to be able to be skilled to deliver that education is really important, because as you say, it might be a language barrier, it might be a cultural barrier. They might need to know the why from someone of the same background. But yeah, in terms of that, the outreach or the reach that you will gain, or the traction that you will gain within those communities, it can be very, very different. So recently we've had, at DPA, we've had a lot of traction within Asian community spaces through social network platforms. We've reached thousands and thousands of people with key messaging. However, that may not be the same in, say, a New Zealand European culture as such. So I think that has a really big thing to do it, but I think the key step there is talking to community leaders to see how it would work within the communities.
I agree. James, you want to jump in?
Yeah, all valid points again from Jonathon and Tom there. Just going back on Jonathan's point before around surf clubs and what was offered many years ago, maybe in terms of a walk in, have a go. I think that's a great idea if the resource is there and it's close to heavily populated beaches, especially now. So I think that's a great approach, but also it needs to be we need to have many different means of getting this education across. So that's one way. And then I know a lot of the first aid providers at the moment are doing more online, which I think is great. So more of that online learning, lots of video clips, YouTube clips, which is another great way to come back to learning some of this key information. So I don't think there's going to be one way that's going to fit all. That's what we're coming to here, and we just need many different methods of engaging our community to get some of these really quite basic facts and skills across.
Yep. And I love what you just said, and also what Tom was saying about the community and that nuanced version of what community means. And usually when I'm doing my water safety stuff, I explain to the diverse groups that I deliver to, I do kind of hit on that you have your community and then you have the greater community of our area, and pushing the point that there is a bond in that greater community. We do need to depend on each other. We're all in the same places at the same time. If something goes wrong with somebody beside you, it doesn't matter that they're not directly from your internal community, that we all share the same space and we're all here together. So we're all part of the same community, and kind of broadening that narrative, which is something that's very natural to CPR and First Aid. That's kind of one of the reasons that I love teaching it, is because it does teach that to be responsible to your fellow person. And that doesn't matter where they come from, and it doesn't matter how long they've been here, and it doesn't matter whether they speak English or not. You have a responsibility to the person who's beside you in your community. Yeah, I think we're kind of, and there's also the aspect of, yes, we need to deliver in many different ways in many different places, but everybody agreeing that it is important to deliver. I think that's probably what it comes down to at this point, because it's almost like in the broader sense, the water safety thing where everybody knows it's important and, oh yes, and everybody nods their head, but we'll get to that later because we got other stuff to do first. And that's what it feels like whenever it's brought up, at least in my case. And everybody completely agrees, but nobody's moving yet because there's a whole bunch of things happening in front. So how do we position it kind of in the middle of all the things that are happening at this point? So in saying all that, I mean, I would kind of jump to Jonathon on this one because you're probably the best one to answer. If Surf Lifesavers are presenting things like this to the public or would run a CPR community level class, is that something that could start to happen? I mean, is that a way for surf clubs to engage with the public?
I think it absolutely is, but I think when we have a National Water Safety Week and those sort of activities, and we have a number of organisations who are members of Water Safety New Zealand, and we have specific expertise in the CPR training area with relation to drowning from organisations like DPA, that it probably just hasn't been suggested to organisations like Water Safety New Zealand or Surf Life Saving New Zealand that maybe something that could be part of Water Safety Week is an activity like this. Link in with the New Zealand Resuscitation Council, for example, to actually bring on board all sorts of organisations like Swimming New Zealand, like the pool industry in terms of Recreation Aotearoa, to actually see whether or not through multiple organisations we can have a CPR week or a Have a Go day as an annual event for cardiac arrest around the world. We have World Restart a Heart Day, which is all about encouraging people to learn CPR and where the nearest AED is and those types of things. But I think there's just an opportunity to actually suggest that to Water Safety New Zealand or Surf Life Saving New Zealand, because I think if we're going to do this, we want people throughout the country to be part of the initiative. And there's quite a bit of coordination that goes into it. As we've talked about before, you need equipment, you need cleaning materials and face shields. So it's certainly something that we can start the ball rolling now in the hope that we sort of move out of the current lockdown restrictions through COVID that will allow people to come and have a go and do compressions and breaths into a mannequin. As James said, we have some strategies around not doing that at the current time, but we want to, get to a point, hopefully, where those are less of a concern. So I see it as a real opportunity, but the idea has to be floated, and I'd be keen for it to be a national initiative rather than just limited to where I am based in the northern region.
Yep. Would everybody agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I should probably say that we kind of tried to do that last year. Or year before last, sorry. It's the ideas, and that was one of the impetuses of having this the previous conversation that we had was thinking about, hey, shouldn't we have a day like that? So I think it'll probably take all our voices together in a chorus.
Yeah, I think it actually, and you've got good people like Surf Life Saving New Zealand's medical director, Dr. Gary Payanda, to bring into the mix as well. And it basically, I think it's a meeting like this with Surf Life Saving New Zealand, with Water Safety New Zealand, with the New Zealand Resuscitation Council through their communications advisor, to say, we want to look at this as an annual initiative, which is part of National Water Safety Week, and hopefully it's something that can continue and can grow, but it's got to start somewhere.
I agree. So we'll go with that. But if you guys will indulge me, I'll share a little story because we're talking about buy-in from the larger organizations. One of the things I managed to do in the past year, I was working with Te Puna Ora Matatua down in Whakatane, and we had a rangatahi program down there, which was youth water safety, essentially, program. And the idea was to create youth champions for water safety within the community. And really all props to Te Puna Ora Matatua for pulling together the people and the kai and all the stuff that getting the kids out there. One of the cool parts of that there's one cool part of the program where we did the water safety, the Water Watchers program that I do in combination with a scuba tri dive, as opposed to getting in the pool and doing the normal skills, which one doesn't replace the other one, but it was a way to kind of apply the importance and the respect for the water in a different way. And then the other big difference with that program is I got to do the CPR First Aid, the actual NCQA cert with them, which they were able to take to their high schools and get credit for, number one. But the second thing was we did it after the water safety stuff. So with all the water safety stuff fresh in their head, they were now going through the CPR First Aid, the DRS, ABCDS, or ABCD. And it really did resonate with them. And also the adults were taking the program. It resonated with them too, because I was able to twist one of the scenarios for it to be a beach scenario where people were hit by a wave off the rocks. All the different things you'd be looking for, what you'd have to handle, what it would be like to actually deal with that when you have multiple people who are down, and all the different things that could happen. And it left people thinking, and thinking in a really positive way. And these are people who definitely not only devoted to their kids, but very experienced around young people. And I think it left a positive outcome. And for me, that was a really good example of how the two can work together in close proximity.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds really good. I think the key that you had there was the why and how it connects to the relevance to it. It's not a classroom-based event or training. It's actually out in an environment that they recreate in, and that's why it's relevant. So, yeah, that sounds really good.
Yeah. So the possibility of doing more of that kind of stuff in the future, or the possibility of actually getting one of the scenarios that instructors use, and I think we talked about that last time, is having a water-based scenario that is taught with standard CPR, that all these work-based programs actually have some kind of water component to it, which highlights that aspect.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It should just be part and parcel of standard first aid training. There is a revised drowning guideline coming out from the Australian and New Zealand Resuscitation Council, ANZCOR, very shortly. It's sort of in the final stages of sign-off. It does include the drowning chain of survival in that document, which hopefully acts as a bit of a prompt to first aid instructors that first aid in regards to drowning, again, is the whole spectrum from prevention right through to resuscitation. But one of the things, just picking up on the earlier comments around electronic resources, and again, I think we have to be careful here that there's a limited subset of people who will have access to these, and that there's cost in developing them. But, I would love to see a situation where there is a online sort of activity where you make some decisions, good or bad. There are outcomes for those, but it's framed in a positive way, that it's not gory or graphic or anything like that, but it leaves the learner at the end of it with a link to say, if you want to learn the practical skills of first aid or CPR, come and join us on our CPR Have a Go a Day at the local surf club at Waipu Cove. And they get to actually follow on from that sort of activity. If they don't turn up, there's some information embedded that they were better educated than before. But I think it's a really good opportunity for surf life saving, especially to engage with members of the public, make them feel that the surf club is their club, it's part of their community. But there's other, water activities going on as well. So it'd be great if it could extend past that. But I see them as a natural starting point, simply because of their geographical spread around the country, but also the fact that they have access to mannequins, they know the cleaning procedures for them, and they have qualified instructors within the clubs who are teaching their members anyway. And that would be a great sort of starting point. But let's not forget about the swim clubs, the tri clubs, the waka ama, those types of other groups as well, who, for, as I said before, relatively small outlay can get themselves a mannequin, connect it to Bluetooth via the phone, and away they go. Maybe the education package for the instructors is actually a video that they watch, and they go from there. And I think we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that whilst we have high expectations around CPR competency for lifeguards, health professionals who have a duty of care to respond, when it comes to members of the public, the old saying, any attempt at resuscitation is better than none, completely holds true. And that's definitely the target audience here, that if a member of the public, as James said, does something rather than just stands there, then that's got to be better for the person who's lying on the beach, hoping that somebody knows CPR rather than just waiting for the ambulance or the helicopter to arrive.
Yep. So stemming off from that, because we talked about the NZ or the New Zealand Resuscitation Council cert that you can get as well for delivering CPR training. So is that something that, say you had a local iwi organization or a community organization, that they could appoint somebody to take that course and then have somebody internally who can deliver these kind of programs?
It is. It's a good. I'm a little bit conflicted because I do some of the accreditation for those in the Auckland region. It's a means of, I think, assuring the standard of education that is delivered. It's essentially meant, though, for people who are already teaching within the industry to reaccredit them, rather than a course on how to teach first aid. So whilst it does provide an update to the latest guidelines and assesses the competency of instructors in basic life support choking and tests their knowledge around first aid, they sort of need to come from having some experience in principles of adult learning and education or teaching. So there's probably a step missing to get them to that point,
right.
And there's a cost involved to put them through that process. So they would be considerations, but that is one way to ensure, to a certain extent, the quality of education being delivered, because the people who are coming along to do these updates are not looking for unit standards or workplace first aid certificates. As we said before, their motivation is probably a near miss. They're now grandparents who are looking after the kids at the beach. So there's lots of other reasons. Most people who do first aid training are there because work sends them. They're not there because they necessarily want to. That's not everybody, of course. But I think we have to tailor the activity to people's motivations to front up. And that involves making it fun, engaging with lifeguards, people who they may not normally talk with or see the rescue equipment or the defibrillator or the IRB or whatever it is. So there's a few sort of spin-off benefits there. And, hey, while you're here, let's do CPR. DPA do a great job of that when they do some of their public displays at various community events. We've got this, we've got these brochures, we've got life jacket hubs, etc. Oh, by the way, while you're here, do you know CPR? And just getting that sort of embedded into anything that we do also has the option of, hey, do you know CPR?
Yep. So sorry, go ahead, James.
I was just going to say, I was just thinking there, we're talking about communities, community groups, different ethnicities, but we all know that, we see a lot of drownings happen with males. So males make up 80% of our drownings. And then the age group, 15 to 24 years of age, is the highest risk in terms of age group. And so then with, my thinking is schools are communities as well. And within that secondary school space, I know there's first aid training happening for those that are keen and want to head towards receiving the unit standards around it. The 6401, 6402, 6400 to get some level 1, 2, 3 unit standards. But there's a lot of students that miss out in that secondary school age bracket around some real basics of CPR and emergency care. So it's how we could also look at targeting some of those secondary schools and engaging. There's a lot of education that happens within the primary school space around water safety and awareness. not so much in the secondary school space and not so much around emergency care and just some basic CPR. They're moving away from that, during that age group, they're moving away from that active supervision. They're moving away from caregivers, adults. That risky behavior starts to take place. What are they going to do if something happens? Are they equipped to deal with that situation if something was to happen? So I think, that would be a really nice area to start to develop further as well. And I guess in terms of surf for lifesaving, we are seeing that age group coming through and becoming lifeguards, selected few, which is great, but it's looking at that age group overall and how we could facilitate or look at what we could provide in that space is front of mind for me as well.
Yeah, definitely.
If we're saving the world, it's interesting to see that in the UK, they've been lobbying Parliament for changes to the curriculum, and now they've got CPR in the curriculum in England and I think in Wales and Scotland as well. But
cool.
The challenge we always have is that for anything that gets added to the curriculum, something has to fall out.
Yeah.
So I agree with James. It's how we make it easy to empower teachers to do the training. So I think there's a real need for a train the trainer program here if we want this to have the reach that we're talking about. Because for some people it's going to be quite easy to access this, but are they the people who are really at most in need of the training, who are going to go to an unpatrolled beach, who are going to be at the river or swinging off the rope into the pond when there's an aquatic mishap, and they're really the people that we want to have those basic skills to be able to know what to do in an emergency. And we see some great ads on TV for the fast recognition of a stroke. I've seen some really good stuff from the Heart Foundation about signs of a heart attack. I'm thinking, where's the next ad about basics of CPR and how to use an AED? And if we could get to that level of media coverage, maybe then we've got people saying, where do I go to have a go type sort of thing. I've seen the ad on TV and they've told me that I can just do like a 5 or 10 minute session just to put what I've seen into practice. And I think that's where having multiple venues, from surf clubs to marais to public pools to high schools, those sorts of things. But it does require a lot of coordination. But where there's a will, there's a way. We've got some impassioned people here who believe in it. And I think it's just a case of trying to get it off the ground.
Yeah. Tom, you want to jump in with something if you like? Because we've been kind of ignoring you in that lower box down there.
Yeah, no, that's all good. I agree with the mass communication out. I think is really important, not only for CPR but for just water safety in general. The only way you're going to get the key messages across to a mass audience is through that mainstream media. But then again, like Jonathon was saying, having that backup so someone can actually go and get hands-on, because it's one thing seeing it, but then actually jumping on a mannequin and realizing how hard it is another thing. So yeah, no, I totally agree with everything that's said, and I think it just needs a steering group. I think push forward in the right direction.
Not a steering group.
Another steering group.
Another steering group.
Or an accelerator group, whatever you want to call it.
I think it goes back to what I said before. It needs kind of a chorus of voices, singing in unison. And my voice is small but mighty down here, but definitely need some help and kind of singing to the same audience that this is a thing. And again, I'll go back to the course I did down in Whakatane. It was an instance where that was funded by Water Safety New Zealand. We did manage to pull that through, and it really showed. It's hard because the tangible result, if you looked at the numbers, no, it's not a huge amount of people that were trained. But if you looked at what came out of it, you have a couple of young people there who are going to be different when they go back to their friends. And that was very, very clear. And it's hard to put a number on that. It's hard to make it tangible. I do my best to do the impact analysis afterwards and how much impact this is going to be and trying to quantify it. But at the end of the day, it's their face at the end of it. It's one of the guys coming up and saying, I really want my picture with the certificate. Please take one. That speaks volumes to me over anything else that's possible, because you know the next time they're in a dangerous situation with their friends or they're at the beach with their friends, this stuff is going to pop back up. And they're going to be the one that they turn to say, oh, hey, what do we do? I mean, you've changed the dynamic of a group of people. And if we get to enough of that going on, we might actually get some traction in it. So, yeah, Jonathon?
I was just going to say, I think, we're probably heading close to, what are the next steps, but I think that we need to, engage with some key people, whether it's Sheridan from Water Safety New Zealand. We've got Tegan from the New Zealand Resuscitation Council, who looks after their comms and marketing. I think someone like Gary Pender as Medical Director for Surf Life Saving New Zealand would have the enthusiasm, plus the people in this group who are here who sort of share the vision to say, we've got an idea. We want to either tie it into something such as National Water Safety Week, or maybe it's something that's a standalone sort of activity. We're seeing it through, I won't say rose-tinted glasses, but there are other considerations around logistics and those sorts of things that, those organisations that have that national reach, may want us to consider. But I think we should at least just have the discussion. It may be that if it doesn't fly nationally, then it's something that can be rolled out as a regional model. But we do have water safety champions around the country, and it may be surf in the northern region. It may be another organisation in the Bay of Plenty. But if we can provide some sort of a framework in terms of recommendations around structure of sessions, some education resources, even if we video the actual the demos, or providing a forum for those who are going to be teaching to watch James or Tom do a live demo and then take questions, that sort of thing. I think we can still have some impact, even if we don't get national coverage. But I think that should be the goal.
Yeah, fully agree with that. And maybe those of us who are on the ground as well, maybe sharing and documenting some of the stuff we're doing and how we're joining the two. And I think probably at the forefront would be DPA, and in my own little way myself in trying to join those two sides, and what success in that looks like and how it could be beneficial. And then I'm sure Life Saving is right there too, obviously, in all of that. And the big thing about Surf Life Saving, since it's such a large organization and there's so much community contact and community participation that can happen, because lifeguarding is a community activity, obviously. So this is another way to increase that contact and invite people in. That whole idea of diversity and inclusion, you can't just open your door and expect people to come in. But something like that is a reason to go out to a community and say, hey, we're inviting you to our home, and we want to show you something that we think is important to you, and we really care about you. And that becomes connection that can make things easier in the long run. So I'll open up to final thoughts before we close, because I'm conscious of all your time, and I really appreciate all of you taking the time today to do this conversation.
I guess the final thought for me is that, whilst I've spoken about wanting to ensure that this does have widespread reach, I think in terms of getting things quickly off the ground, I think with, not too much financial implications, because they tend to sort of, be the ones that really can put the brakes on great initiatives like this. As a regional rollout of a program like this, with some evaluation at the end, is perhaps something that puts us in a stronger position to go to the national bodies to say, well, look, we've run this in the northern region, for example, and this is how it's gone. These are the good things. These are the learnings. But hopefully, there's more positives that come out of it than the negatives, and that sort of acts as a model for engaging with other, not just water safety, but water activity type organisations. So rather than wait till next year's National Water Safety Week, maybe there is something that can be done at a more regional level that can be trialled sooner.
Yep. Jump to you, Tom.
I don't think I have anything else to add. I think everything we've gone over is quite relevant, and I'm really glad that we delve into the subject of CPR itself within aquatics a bit more, because it's something that we skipped over last time. But yeah, I think the initiative starting small to see if it works is a really good idea, and how that happens, we'll see. But yeah, thanks for having me. Cool.
James?
Yeah, thanks, team. That was really interesting as well. Thanks for sharing. I agree. I think it would be a good idea, like you're talking about, Curtis, to reach out to some of the wider sector to see their thoughts. But piloting something regional based could work really well to get something off the ground quickly. And whether that's with surf clubs or other community groups, but the surf clubs do seem to have a lot of attraction, attention, community around them and resources. So it could be a really good starting point that we could look into further, that's for sure.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Again, appreciate your time. And maybe we'll do this again next year. Give an update on all this progress that we've made.
Absolutely.
Sounds good.
Cool, thanks,
all right. Thanks a lot, guys. Like last time, just hang around. We'll debrief at the end. But again, really appreciate your time and have an awesome day.